To a Skylark by P B Shelley. To a Skylark is a beautiful poem by P B Shelley. It is a 21 ode stanza that is consistent in its rhyme scheme from the very first stanza to the last stanza. So the poem deals with A B rhyming scheme from the beginning to the end. It is really important to note the speaker of the poem to a skylark, as it has been revealed in the poems such as Ode to the West Wind. This piece is based on an actual experience of the poet. P.B. Shelley had therefore be the poet himself will be considered as the speaker of this poem. So now let's get an introduction about the poet. Percy bysshe Shelley, commonly known as P B Shelley, was born in 1792 in Broadbridge, Heath, England. He was raised in the countryside and was educated at University College, Oxford. While in school, Shelley was well known for his liberal views and was once chastised for writing a pamphlet titled The Necessity of Atheism. His parents were severely disappointed in him and demanded that he forsake all his beliefs. Soon after this, he eloped with a 16-year-old woman, Harriet Westbrook, of whom he soon tired. It was at this time that Shelley began writing his long form poetry for which he is best known. Shelley had two children with Harriet, but before their second was born, he left her for the future author of Frankenstein or the modern Prometheus, Mary Godwin. Mary became pregnant with her and Shelley's first child soon after, and Harriet sued Shelley for divorce. Soon after this, Mary and Percy met Lord Byron or George Gordon. It was through one of their meetings that Mary was inspired to write Frankenstein. In 1816, Shelley's first wife, Harriet, committed suicide, and Mary and Percy were officially married. During their time together, Mary Shelley's only child to live into adulthood was Percy Florence. In early 1818, he and his wife left England and Shelley produced the majority of his most well known works, including Prometheus Unbound. In 1822, not long before he was meant to turn 30, Shelley was drowned in a storm while sailing in his schooner on the way to La Spezia, Italy. Mary was only 24 at that time and would live to the age of 53, dying of brain cancer in London in 1851. So that's all about the poet. Now let's get into the chapter. Hail to thee, blithe spirit, bird thou never wert, that from heaven or near it pourest thy full heart in profuse strains of unpremeditated art. So the poem begins with the speaker. So here the speaker is pointing out a skylark in the sky. He calls out to the bird not in a greeting but in reverence or with full respect. So, with the word hail to thee, the poet expresses his surprise and amazement by calling the skylark. He is extremely surprised to see the skylark. He refers the bird as blithe spirit, which means happiness or joyful. Here, Shelley sees the bird as a representation of joy. So, more than a bird, the skylark was like a spirit for the poet. So here the skylark appears the best of all birds, and it appears so beautiful to Shelley at the moment he claims that it has come from heaven or at least from somewhere near it. So as he claims whether the bird came from the heaven or from near it, he is expressing his happiness by seeing the bird. The bird is flying all over the sky and pouring happiness in poet's heart with a song which he described as profuse or abundant or full of unpremeditated art. The song gives extreme happiness for the poet. The poet claims that the bird's song is really artful because it is not planned or scripted, so it seems entirely beautiful and amazing for the poet. Higher still and higher, from the earth thou springest, like a cloud of fire. The blue deer thou wingest, and singing still dost soar, and soaring ever singest. So, in the second stanza, Shelley makes some additional observations. The bird is not stopping its flying. It's flying higher still, as if it has sprung up from the earth. So, here in the stanza, the poet compares the skylark to a cloud of fire. It is powerful and unstoppable. So, like a cloud of fire, which is powerful and unstoppable, the bird is flying higher and higher. Perhaps it is just like the bird is returning to the heaven from where it first came. Even though the bird is still ascending or flying, it also keeps up its song. It does the two process simultaneously, that is, it is still flying along with singing. In the golden lightning of the sunken sun, o'er which clouds are brightening, thou dost float and run like an unbodied joy whose race is just begun. So, here in the third stanza, the bird is ascending or flying up towards the golden lightning of the sun, or the bird is just flying towards the rays of sun. Here the sun is sunken or low on the horizon, which means it's almost likely setting for the day, giving the scene a greater ambience as the sunrise and sunset have always been seen as magical times. So, according to the poet, sunrise and sunset are such an ambience which create magical. So, the flying bird with its song in that sunset gives the poet a beautiful ambience. The bird flies up over the clouds that are closest to the sun. It is as if the bird is floating. So the bird is flying just as it is floating in the sky. So without the bird, there is no joy, which means unbodied joy. So without the skylark, the sky is like an unbodied joy. The pale purple even melts around thy flight, like a star of heaven in the broad daylight. Thou art unseen, but yet I hear thy shrill delight. So, here in the fourth stanza, the bird becomes an obscured, or it is being hidden by the pale purple of the sky. The sun is truly going down, and the light in the sky is changing, so it's almost getting dark. It seems to melt around the skylark as it flies. The sky seems to be melting around the skylark when it flies. Shelley compares this scene to the one that the reader might come across during a day. As one casts their eyes to the sky during the day, it is impossible to see stars, but yet one knows they are there. So, actually, the stars are there even in the day, but we are unable to see during the daytime. Due to the light of the sun, we are unable to see the stars which is being hidden. So that same fact stands true for Shelley, who sensed the bird's presence but can no longer see it during the night. It is as if the bird has become a star of heaven, or perhaps it already was. So here, the poet assumes that the bird might have become a star of the heaven when it is no longer visible during the night, but still its song was heard. Keen as are the arrows of that silver spear, whose intense lamp narrows in the wide dawn clear, until we hardly see, we feel that it is there. So, here in the fifth stanza, Shelley makes a comparison between the bird and the moon. He is directly relating happiness and joy to the beauty of the natural world. So it is just like a theme that Shelley was not familiar with. It simply means that Shelley has not undergone happiness, a kind of happiness in his life. So here the poet says the bird is as keen as arrows and as light of an eminent from the silver sphere, which means the moon. So, just like the stars, moons are also visible during the day, but due to the sun rays, it is not visible. So, the moon is intensely bright at night, but during day, it is not visible. It's really hard to see a moon during daytime. So, here the poet says that the bird eventually disappears, but he can still feel its presence through its song. All the earth and air with thy voice is loud, as when night is bare, from one lonely cloud the moon rains out her beams, and heaven is overflowed. So, here in the sixth stanza, the poet describes the main elements of the atmosphere of earth. All the elements which is visible and which is not visible is described here. So some elements are visible depending upon the daytime and some are not visible. Just like that, during the daytime, the bird was visible and its voice is still there during the night. So here, the poet compares the bird as the rays of moon that rain down from heaven. What thou art we know not. What is most like thee? From rainbow clouds there flow not drops so bright to see, as from thy presence showers a rain of melody. So, here in the seventh stanza, the poet says that bird is more than just a creature. It represents something really great. It is just like an essence or a symbol of happiness and all that is needed to live a joyful life. The speaker begins the stanza by stating that he does not know exactly what the skylark is, only what he can think to compare it to. He names of a number of things that he could compare the bird to. The first is with the rainbow clouds, which sound pristinely beautiful. So here the poet compares the bird to the rainbow clouds, which is extremely beautiful. So just like the beautiful rainbow clouds, the bird is as beautiful as the rainbow clouds. But quickly the poet dismisses them, as the drops they drain are nothing compared to the melody that showers from the skylark presence. So at first the poet compares the bird to the rainbow clouds, but suddenly he dismisses them because it drains from the cloud, from the rainbow cloud, it rains and it is gone. After raining, that rainbow is gone. But the melody of the skylark's voice still showers. It will be still present in that atmosphere. So the drops of rains that is showered from the rainbow clouds is nothing when it is compared to the melody of the showers of that skylark. Like a poet hidden in the light of thought, singing hymns unbidden, till the world is wrought to sympathy with hopes and fears it heeded not. So, here in the eighth stanza, Shelley tries to describe the bird. He describes the bird's song as something which is extremely wonderful. The bird's song forces the sympathy to fall into the people's mind. Thereby, people attain hope. So, whoever hears the song of that skylark gets really relieved. So, the one who hears the bird's song gets really relieved and it also gives hope. Like a high born maiden in a palace tower, soothing her love laden soul in secret hour, with music sweet as love, which overflows her bower. So, here in the ninth stanza, again a comparison is made by the poet. Here, the skylark is said to be like a high born maiden who is locked in a palace tower. Here, the bird is described to a maiden, and the poet himself is described as the lover of that maiden. So, as a maiden soothe her lover's soul, the bird here is able to secretly soothe his soul. So the bird's music were as sweet as love. And in case of a maiden, it overflows her bedroom or bower. Bower means bedroom. So that bird's music was just sweet as love, which overflows all through the castle, mainly her bedroom. Like a glow-worm golden, in a dwell of dew, scattering unbeholden its aerial hue among the flowers and grass which screen it from the view. So here Shelley has still more comparisons to share. He sees the bird as a glowworm that is emanating golden in color. So here the bird is compared to a glowworm which seems golden in light. Here the bird is like a glowworm that goldens in light in a small valley in woods amongst the dew. So here through this comparison Shelley creates a beautiful atmosphere. So this small moment of beauty is as delicate and important as the moment in which Shelley is living. So these natural comparisons are those that bring Shelley the closest to the relaying emotion which he felt while hearing the Skylark song. So the Skylark song takes him to the nature, to the natural beauty. The bird is scattering its happiness from the sky. So its song is scattered to anyone or anything. So just like the water droplets raining from the sky, its joy is raining down from the sky among the flowers and grass. So it's just like this bird's song has become a part of everything. It's not seen, but it's felt. Like a rose embowed in its own green leaves, by warm winds deflowered, till the scent it gives makes faint with too much sweet those heavy winged thieves. So here in the 11th stanza, the poet presents one final comparison. So the sound, the feeling, and the look of the bird reminds Shelley of a rose which is protected by its own thorns and leaves. But still, this protection does not last forever, and warm winds can blow off all of its flowers and spread its scent within the breeze. So, the warm wind can spread the flower, the rose scent within everywhere. So, the sweet of that petals is too much, or it is really attractive for the winds also. Sound of vernal showers on the twinkling grass, rain awakened flowers, all that ever was joyous and clear and fresh, thy music doth surpass. So, here in the 12th stanza, the speaker uses metaphor. The poet says that the sound of the bird's song is beyond everything. So, the poet says that the song of the bird overcomes everything that ever was considered before. So, the thing which was considered before, like joyous, clear, fresh, so all these matters were just nothing in front of the bird's song. So, the bird's song was something which is more better than a spring or the feeling which the poet has during the spring season. So, the bird's song is better than anything. Teach us, sprite or bird, what sweet thoughts are thine. I have never heard praise of love or wine that panted forth a flood of rapture so divine. So here it is the turning point of the poem. So this 13th stanza is the turning point of the poem where the speaker is he's feeling exhausted with his comparisons. So he again turns back to the Skylark and he addresses it. So here the poet hopes that the bird is more apt to call it a sprite as it accepts an emotion, what thought is thinking. So the poet calls the bird as a sprite because it is fit enough to accept emotion. So the poet confesses that during his lifetime he has never seen such a creature or such a beautiful creature in his life. So the poet is trying to say that during his life he has never seen anything which can inspire him. So he's not inspired with anything. So this bird inspires him a lot. Chorus hymeneal or triumphal chant, matched with thine would be all, but an empty want, a thing wherein we feel there is some hidden want. So now in the 14th stanza, the song of the bird is described as being like a hymn, which is sung in a chorus. So it is like a triumphal chant or like a victoric ode. So this victoric ode is suited to all occasions and all contingencies of human life. So this victoric ode is suited to all occasions and all conditions of human life. It can equally outmatch religious or wartime subject. It's just a great inspiration. So no other song can compete with the bird song. Other song might be beautiful or it might be good enough to hear, but as compared to the bird song, one element would be missing, but it's not clearly possible to show, and that element which is missing is unknown. What objects are the fountains of thy happy strain? What fields or waves or mountains? What shapes of sky or plain? What love of thine own kind? What ignorance of pain? So now in this 15th stanza, the poet asks the bird certain questions. He asks the bird, what is it thinking about? About the objects or the vision does the beautiful song come from? So the poet is asking the bird what is the bird thinking of and where does the beautiful song come from? So he believes that the bird is willing enough to answer his questions. So the poet believes that the bird has all the answers for the poet's questions. So simply the poet question means how to find happiness. So for the answer of that poet's questions is still present with the bird. So the poet also possesses a number of options for his questions. That is your song inspired by the fields or the waves or the mountains? So he asks whether the bird is singing inspired by the fields or waves or mountains. Then he again asks the question, does your song come from love of thine own kind? Which means a love that the skylark has found amongst its own species. So he again asks that whether the skylark is singing inspired by his love which he had with its own species. So he again asks that the bird has a love with its own species and it would be like without a pain. So his song is so beautiful as he has a love with no pain. So he's extremely blessed to have a love with no pain. That's why its song is extremely beautiful. With thy clear, keen joyance, languor cannot be. Shadow of annoyance never came near thee. Thou lovest, but never knew love's sad satiety. So here in the 16th stanza, the speaker says that he does not believe that someone who has ever felt pain could produce this song of joy. So according to the poet, if someone who knows what is pain cannot produce such a beautiful song, so according to the poet, the bird is something which haven't even felt what is pain. That's why it is able to produce a beautiful song. So the poet believes that the bird has experienced the wonders of love without love's sad side or the disappointing conclusions. Poet says that the bird is able enough to produce such a beautiful song because it haven't even felt the sad side of love. The bird might have a love with its own species and that love doesn't even have a sad conclusion or his love has a happy ending. That's why it is able enough to produce such a beautiful song which even creates a hope in everyone's mind. Waking or asleep, thou of death must deem things more true and deep than we mortals dream, or how could thy notes flow in such a crystal stream? So in the 17th stanza, From the bird song, Shelley continues us to make guess about the bird's interior life. He believes that the bird is able enough to produce such a pure, beautiful sound as it understands much more about life and death than people. So, more than human, bird knows more about life and death, so it can produce such a beautiful song. So, that knowledge about what is life and death must be given from beyond far away, and the song comes from that far away place. So, beyond is where the sound must come. We look before and after and pine for what is not. Our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. Our sweetest songs are those that tell of saddest thought. So now the poem is in its conclusion part. So P.B. Shelley, our speaker, continues to make sweeping claims about the nature of Skylark. So here in the stanza, he compares humans' view of death with Skylark's view of death. So here he compares Skylark has a view of for death, and also he compares that view with human's view. Human has a certain view about death, also the Skylark. So he compares both the views. So we humans view death as before and after. We are incapable of enjoying anything without remembering our own pain. So we are not even able to enjoy anything without having a pain. That's why our songs are not as pure as the skylarks. We are having pain in every happiness that we follow or that we went through. So that's why our songs are not as sweet or as pure as the skylarks. Yet if we could scorn, hate, and pride and fear, if we were things born not to shed a tear, I know not how thy joy we ever should come near. So here the poet says that humans are born with certain emotions like hate, pride, and fear. So as we have all these emotions, we are not able to find what is joy, even if it is there with us. So even if we have the joyful element in us, we are not able to find. We are only trying to shed a tear. We are not even trying to find the joy in us. So as humans are born with the hate and pride and fear, they are not even able to find joyness or happiness with them. Bird is not like that. That's why it could able to find happiness. And it is being shared with the nature within his song. Better than all measures of delightful sound, better than all treasures than in books are found, thy skill to poet where thou's corner of the ground. So here in the 20th stanza, the poet makes a final plea to the skylark. He begins the stanza by saying that the ability to sing and experience happiness as the skylark does, it is worth more to him than all the treasures that he had. So the ability of that skylark to sing and experience happiness is more worth than the treasure that poet has. So the poet's song, its happiness is more valuable than all the treasure elements. It simply means that happiness is more valuable than any treasure elements. Human just only need happiness in his life. So more than treasure, money, all such things, what human must need is happiness, which the bird has. Teach me half the gladness that thy brain must know. Such harmonious madness from my lips would flow. The world should listen then, as I am listening now. So, here in the last stanza, the 21st stanza, the poet is asking the skylark to teach him how to compose or how to sing such a beautiful song. So, Shelley says that if Shelley knows a small portion from the bird's pleasure or how the bird is singing so happily, words would be flowing within Shelley's mouth. So if bird teaches how to sing happily, words will be flowing within Shelley's mouth. By that teaching, he would also be owning a beautiful sound. And with that joyful sound, he would force the world to listen to him as intensely as now he is listening to the Skylark. So now the poet is listening so intensively to the song of the Skylark. So if the Skylark teach the poet the magic of his song, the poet would be able enough to produce or compose such a beautiful song. So by composing such a beautiful song like the Skylark, he would force the world to listen to him, or the world would be forced to listen to the poet's song. And he is just pleasing to the Skylark just only for happiness. So the poet is enclosed with certain emotions, certain problems, so he is unable to produce such a beautiful song. As the bird, who is free from all such worldly problems, it is able enough to produce such a beautiful song. That's why the poet is asking the bird for help to help him to produce or how to produce something which is more beautiful than any other song, which is melodious than any other song, because this song is completely shattering or scattering happiness. So the poet is in search of happiness. That's why he's again keep on asking the Skylark to teach him how to compose such a song which spread happiness all around the world. So that's all about the beautiful poem To a Skylark. So this poem mainly deals with many comparisons. The poet compares the skylark to many matters. So he compares the bird with nature as well. So the usage of certain imageries, metaphors, enjambment, all it gives a life to the poetry. So all these poetic device makes the poem a beautiful one. So I hope this video is helpful for you. Thank you.